Hello, it's Anna here from Papercraft Create, and welcome to my video of Kendra's Card Challenge 10 Part 2. So in this video what I will be showing you is how I put together cards 8 through to 15. If you haven't already watched Part 1, which shows you obviously cards 1 through to 7, I will put a link in the description box so you can head back, and perhaps at the end of the video you'll also have the chance to go back and have a look at that one. So I'll show you my interpretation of how I put these cards together. With card sketch number 8, you can see up there in the corner, I have obviously kept this one fairly much the same. You can see that that there is basically it's two squares, one square is sort of cut in half, and you're sort of layering those pattern pieces up onto some cardstock. Now I wanted to keep it quite white because it was sort of even though it's a white base pattern, it's quite a busy pattern. So I did, in fact, which might not show up so well, but it is actually an embossed, like a stitch embossed piece of paper which I layer up on a white card base, and it just keeps it fresh and sort of not too busy. In the card sketch, you'll see that there's just a sentiment across the middle. I have in fact put an embellishment of a lovely group of flowers, or a couple of flowers, and then I've put in a little bannered sentiment just underneath that, just to add a little bit more, just to break up all those little flowers, and it sort of all ties in together with a similar flower using one of those ephemera pieces. This is something I've never really done before, so it was a great little sketch. I have sort of done ones in the past for Kendra that have just been the diamond on its own, but really quite great. So moving on to card sketch number 9. This one here, actually I did do this one here on an Australian sort of card base, so that's sort of a half an A4. Because the reason I did that was because I used one of the sort of pre-printed card fronts mats. So this one here is part of the paper pack, and all you need to do is sort of cut it down the center and it fits on the front of one of those card fronts. So I might have actually also have just taken a little bit off the edge just to give it a bit of a white sort of matte with the card base, which you'll see in a moment. And the other thing I also did is I swapped out 2 of the banners because I just felt that the coordinating pattern paper that went with this one here, it just was a bit too busy. There was just way too much going on. So I decided just to bring in some glittered card stock or card paper in like a purpley pink that obviously went well with it to create those extra banners. And then obviously I brought in a little bit of extra bling with the glittered cardstock of the circle embellishment, and also using one of the little fairy ephemera pieces that you'll see there. You know, look, this is these little card fronts are fantastic because, you know, you can easily build or make it look as though you've built up a few layers, but it's actually one flat piece. So it's really fantastic if you're sending these cards in the mail. So yes, it's certainly a great little additive to this kit, which is sort of another thing that I haven't sort of used before. And I thought, oh wow, that's a really quick, fast way to, you know, make a card that looks like it's had plenty of time with it. So now moving on to card sketch number 10. So with 10, 11 and 12, basically there's 3 sheets of the patterned paper, and you're cutting the same layout. However, each piece will be a different part of this sort of 3-pieced puzzle. So with doing anything like this, what I do find is if I do the top and the bottom and space those out nicely, generally the middle will fit in exactly where it's meant to be. So with this card sketch, I wasn't too sure whether there needed to be strips or a gap or whatever. I just couldn't quite get it working well. I don't know if it's papers I used. So I did decide to use some strips across those joins. So in this one here, you will see that I will use some glitter cardstock, like a white glitter cardstock. And that's just to, you know, give it a bit more definition. I felt it was a little more finished for my eye. And really like the look of it. Just adds a little bit of interest, and certainly does add a little bit more to the card. I feel having left it just plain for me was just a little unfinished. So whenever you've got these sorts of card sketches, sometimes they might just not look quite right or something like that. But trying these little things really can add just all the difference in the world. And it's literally just a little strip of 1/8 glittered cardstock. And then I sort of did move around. I did try to keep it as best as I could, sort of fitting to this design, but I did keep my little focal piece at the bottom. It is probably a little bit bigger, the circle, than perhaps in the card sketch, but it fit my little embellishment quite well. And then I was sort of looking as to where I would put this embellishment. I wasn't sure if I would run it across the bottom or the top, so I've decided to go with the top after having a little play around. And I've put my little fairy ephemera on a bit of foam stock, and then I will also use a couple of the little star ephemeras to finish that card off. So I'm not sure whether you've had the chance to put your cards together or give this challenge a go, or a past one, but it is a really great way to get you moving if you've got a bit of a creative block, or if you need to make up some quick cards and need some designs. It's really great. So just a little reminder that this challenge, if you're wanting to enter in a set of cards yourself, runs through to the 30th of June 2023. So you've still got a couple of weeks or so, actually 3 weeks, a good 3 weeks, to enter in your own set of cards. All information can be found at Kendra's website, www.cardsbykendra.com. I will put links in, and there you'll find all the information of being able to download the PDFs of all the cutting templates of the 6 sheets of 6x6 paper, and also the card sketches. So I encourage you to head on over, check out her website, and have a look at what she has to offer. She also has a patron membership if you'd like to join that, to get access to lots of other freebies and goodies, and she'll have all of that information once again on her website, which I'll have listed below. So moving on to card sketch number 11. So this is obviously once again that same design, but changing up the pattern papers. It really does give it a different look again. And in this one here, I once again used the glittered cardstock to add the finished lines and border. And I think particularly because this one is blue and it's got the blue, it really just finishes it off nicely. In this instance, once again, I did use like a bigger circle and sort of kept the focal point roughly where it was suggested for this particular card sketch. And then I did also add another sentiment, but a little bit lower than obviously than the round circle, or next to the round circle, which for me just fit this card nicely. And also, once again, using another little fairy ephemera. This might have been one of the ones I cut out from the pattern paper. So there were some that were actually part of the pack, but there was also another sheet as part of the paper pack that had a whole sheet full of these little fairies pre-printed, which you could either fussy cut, and I actually cut those out with my brother Scan and Cut, which is really fantastic for these sorts of things and making it a very quick process. I do have a YouTube short showing you how I've done that, so you can have a look at that if you'd like to know a little bit more about that. And if you would like to know a little bit more about Brother and using it for your paper crafting, leave me a comment. I'd happy to share any of my knowledge. I hope to do a few more videos in the future showing the Brother Scan and Cut, because I really do love it, and there's some amazing things you can create with that. So heading back on to card sketch number 12. So this is the third of that similar cut. This time here I've used a little bit of green glitter paper as a little border, once again matching it back to that middle paper, but obviously being a white base, but there's some green stars in there, and I've highlighted it with some sort of bluey green other bits as my focal point, as you'll see in a sec as I put that all together. So I've got a circle which is a sentiment there, which is sort of matching where that sentiment at the top was. However, for me, I just felt it was just way too top heavy, so I needed to add a little something else just to balance it out on that opposite corner on the bottom. In doing so, I decided to use one of my little fairies that, once again, I fussy cut with the Brother Scan and Cut, and I used a star as a base to prop my little fairy on, as something a little bit different than a circle, and I think it sort of turned out quite cute, seeing she looks like a little fairy godmother with her little star wand there. Very cute indeed. So moving on to card sketch number 13. I did find this one here quite a challenge. It was something that I have sort of not really done before. Pardon me, sorry, I do have a bit of a cold at the moment, I'm sure you can hear, and just trying my best not to make it horrible to listen to my voice, but I'll soldier on. So this one here, I actually did, in fact, that white spotted paper, I actually bought that in because I just did not like the combination that I had after cutting out my, I know that sounds like a bit of a waste, but I will certainly use it for something else. Don't worry about that. So I had like the blue spotty paper together with a blue stripy paper, and it just looked all wrong and weird. I think it was just too much blue, and just the stripes were sort of angled on a weird angle because it's a diagonal cut. And with this particular cut, I probably didn't factor that in, and it just was all over the place. So I decided to do a light and dark sort of colour combo, having a more muted pattern with something a little bit more sprightly there. In the end, actually, I really loved the way this one turned out, and I thought I just wanted something like a large focal point in the middle for me, as I was a little distressed that I had put in my middle triangles not quite even, and for me that's something that really bothers me, and one of my little crafty quirks, but I do really I like the way this one turned out in the end. So I just sort of moved my focal point to the centre and put in my gorgeous little fairy on the moon fishing for stars, I imagined, or wishes perhaps, and then just a strip sentiment just underneath that one there. And as I said, I really love the way this one turned out. So I sort of put the moon on flat and I propped up my little fairy on some foam stock, so it sort of looked like it was sitting over the moon, and then obviously just put my sentiment just flush on the bottom as we just sort of made that fairy pop a bit. Okay, so we're moving on to card sketch number 14, our second last. This one here has 3 strips of pattern paper. So it's a great card sketch, actually, if you've got lots of scraps and you want to make up, a card quite quickly. I have matted those pieces onto glitter cardstock, and then I've put a white piece of paper on my card front, and I've embossed that. So it gives a nice, bright, fresh look, but it also adds a little bit of extra interest with that chevron embossing on it. So what I will do is use a bit of the ephemera as well from the kit, which is 1 sentiment, which will be in the middle heart to one side, and then using a couple of others for the other 2. So, this card sketch challenge is fantastic for using up your pattern paper, obviously when it's in one piece, but there's nothing to say that you can't sort of reuse these card sketches when you've got lots of scraps. So, when you've got like a whole bunch of them piling up, you can sort them into some colours or families or some way that they coordinate with each other, and then refer back to these card sketches when you've got to put together, some quick cards, or you want to just do some easy sort of mindless crafting, and you've got everything ready there to go, and you can just create a bunch of cards. So this one here, actually, I really like the way it turned out in the end. It's quite simple, fresh, and really quite pretty. Now, of course, our last number 15. This card here was also quite a good one too, which I think would also work, particularly if we've got some of those little scraps, particularly on that front square piece or rectangular piece. So we've got obviously the base there that's on some navy cardstock, matted on some navy cardstock. Then I've used once again another embossed, so that's a dot embossed white piece, keeping it quite fresh and not too busy, but still adding that interest with the embossing on the white. I've also embossed the white piece that will go in the centre as well, and that's going to sit on top of that glittered cardstock. So the base will be the glittered cardstock, and just pop those two little pieces on there. And I think this is a really great sort of quick card. As I said, once again, this will work really well for those little strips of pattern paper that you have hanging around still. So a great way to use it up. Now, I'd love to know perhaps which is your favourite of the card sketches, and also do you, use these card sketches as a guide when you're, at a bit of a bind or a bit short on time to, put some cards together. They're a great resource to use at a later time, and some card sketches may appeal to you more than others, and that's just, completely fine, because some things look, much nicer to one than the other. So the other two things that I did add were obviously a sentiment and one of my little fussy cut fairies. Now you can see that I'm actually just leveling up that bottom layer just so it doesn't have a dip, and I'll actually prop my fairy on some foam tape, but I will just layer up the sentiment on a couple of pieces of cardstock, so it slightly lifts it but makes it not quite as high, and it just adds that extra dimension and not a whole heap of bulk, but just gives the card a bit of a dimensional look. I hope you'll give this challenge a go. It's quite a lot of fun. As you can see, here are all the prize sponsors for this challenge, so you could win yourself some wonderful crafting supplies from one of these great companies. And thank you so much for watching once again, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.